So here we have a in-progress project. This is a SCADA node for our solar power grid. It is based on a Raspberry Pi computer, which is running over here. The Raspberry Pi is connecting through an HDMI cable to a standard television, and then it's got USB cables that go to a mouse and a keyboard. Also, there's a USB cable coming over here to a device called a data acquisition unit. This one is made by LabJack. It's a really high quality data acquisition unit that's great for educational use, and they have fantastic support for their software libraries. What this student has done is wired up the inputs and outputs on the data acquisition unit to their own circuit boards to interface with our power system. Now, this is all temporary. This is just set up for a temporary test. The finished system will look neater than this, of course. But what we're doing in this case is we are measuring ambient temperature using a semiconductor sensor. We are also measuring station power voltage, which is the DC voltage used to trip and close our circuit breakers. We're also measuring the bus voltage off of the solar power. And the circuit breakers, there's one right there, there's one right there. This particular one, circuit breaker number 1, is the one that's going to be controlled by this data acquisition unit. So the student has been working on some Python code to provide a user interface, and this is what the user interface looks like. We have 3 readouts, one for DC bus voltage, one for station power voltage, and one for ambient temperature. You can see we're reading 17.2 volts for DC bus, 13.61 for the station power, and the internal temperature there is 24.27 degrees Celsius. It has an update rate of once every 5 seconds or so. Then we've got a couple buttons there that are mouse clickable, one to trip the breaker and one to close. So go ahead and trip the breaker and then close it. And then looking up here, go ahead and trip the breaker again. There we go, green light, close it. Right there, red light. So we have remote operator control over the breaker. We also have the ability to monitor the system bus voltage, station power, and internal temperature. Again, this project is incomplete. It's not quite done yet, but this represents a lot of work that was put into this particular project. And the idea being that eventually each one of these substation junction boxes can have its own Raspberry Pi computer. They can be networked to an Ethernet switch, and we can access the software remotely and actually have remote control over our power system.